Peter Pedler. I'm from Duncan, Basheer, Hannon. I hope you enjoyed the show today.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We've been joined by Peter Pedler. How are you, Peter?
Very well, thank you, Greg.
Duncan, Basheer, Hannon, how are we flying along? Every time I flick on the radio, billboards, whatever, you are everywhere at the moment.
They are everywhere at the moment.
Yes, no, we're getting our name out there, and it's pleasing to hear that you've heard of us.
I certainly have, and I really enjoy it. Now, community titles, I'm going to let Greg ask this line of questioning.
All right. I'm a purchaser, and I've seen a property, and it basically has this unusual thing on it called community title. What does that mean, and what do I get, and how does that impact on the money I get from the bank?
Okay, look, there's a couple of things there, Greg. Perhaps the best way to describe it is to talk about, first of all, a normal title, which are commonly called torrens titles. If you have a property on a torrens title, you own everything that relates to that land. So you own the driveway and the sewer and the stormwater, and you own everything above it and everything below it, and subject to council approval, you can do pretty well what you like on your bit of land. With a community title, one or more of those things are subject to common ownership. So it might be the driveway and the sewer system, or it might be the stormwater system, or it might be a community title in a block, so you don't own anything above the limit of the property or below, you just own the property. So it's subject to common ownership. Some parts of your property are subject to common ownership, and that's where a purchaser needs to be careful. With common ownership, you need to make sure that what you want to do with your property, you can do. For example, I had a client who had a property which was a community title, and he wanted to put a pergola over his barbecue area. He couldn't get approval because it required the approval of the community corporation for him to do that.
And the community corporation, that's made up of the people within the community?
That's right. The owners make up the community corporation, but it is a separate legal entity.
Right.
And one thing that a purchaser needs to be, or needs to understand when they're buying a property, is that they are responsible for all of the debts of the community corporation. So you need to have a good understanding of what the community corporation has been doing to make sure that you understand what you're getting into when you're buying a community corporation.
Right. So your point is, I guess, understand what it is you're getting into. Other than that, it's a roof over your head. If you see something that's community title, just have an understanding of what those obligations are. But if you love the property, no reason why not to get involved.
Community titles are a very important form of land ownership, and without community titles, we'd be much more restricted in the sort of properties that we could own or buy. But I guess the one thing I'd recommend to purchasers is to make sure you read the disclosure statement, the Form 1. I mean, it's a very important document to read anyway, but there's three things I think a purchaser needs to look for in a Form 1 in a community title situation. When you get the Form 1, it will have the meetings going back 1 or 2 years. You need to read through the minutes of those meetings and see if there's any issues that have come up in the meetings, any disputes, anything you should know about before you buy.
How often are the meetings usually, Peter?
Well, they're annual meetings, but then they have special meetings when there's particular issues that come up that need to be dealt with. The next thing you need to understand is what's in the sinking fund. The sinking fund is a fund of money that's kept forward to maintain and repair all the common property. And I know there have been instances where people have bought into a property, there's been some substantial repairs required to the driveway or the stormwater system, and there just has been no money in the sinking fund, and so all of the owners need to put in money. And then the final thing is to understand what approvals you require if you want to change anything in your apartment or your house. For example, if you need to, if you think you might want to put a pergola up or something like that, look at the community rules to see whether it requires the unanimous consent of the owners, which is usually pretty hard to get, or it's a special resolution or an ordinary resolution, that is 50%. So those three things I think are very important issues for a purchaser to look at when they're buying a community title. But
don't be afraid of community title. It's just another form of title.
It's like everything else. You need to understand what you're buying, but it's a very important type of land ownership. And as I said, without it, we'd be very restricted in the sort of properties we could buy and live in.
If people take your advice and they read through the minutes and find something, or the sinking fund doesn't seem to have enough money in it or whatever, who's the right person to go to for advice?
Well, they should talk to their conveyancer, or even better, come and see us. We can.
That's the right answer.
That's
the right answer.
And they can contact me. My direct number is 8216 3356, or on email ppedler@dbh.com.au.
Very good indeed. So company titles, don't be scared of them. I believe the
Community titles.
community titles.
We don't want to go
Sorry.
company titles.
Sorry. Oh,
I think a bit of a Freudian slip there, Greg.
It is a Freudian slip, but since I have touched on it, and since I did sell a property very early on that was a company titled, what is the major difference?
Have we got 20 minutes?
Well,
No, just in a nutshell.
in a nutshell, you don't own any interest in land. You own a share in a company that owns the land.
Right.
And there are special issues. It's a much bigger issue buying a company title than it is a community title. So we might talk about that another time.
I'd love to, because, and I don't think there's too many out there, but they still are out there.
Yeah, in the last 3 or 4 years, I guess I've come up with 2 transactions where they've been company titles.
Yeah, and the one thing to really watch for is, from what I understand anyway, and we should have asked Ben, but I don't think banks like them as much.
No, they don't like them at all.
Can we do that one next?
We will.
Okay, so
We'll
let's
lock
go
that
back
one
to
in.
community titles, really cool. So the difference between community and strata, very well explained. And Peter, as usual, thank you very much for being succinct and what's a very important topic.
Thanks, Greg. Good to be
Very
here
well
again.
done indeed. Righto, ladies and gentlemen, that's just about a close. That's Peter Pedler from Duncan, Basheer, Hannon. What a show it's been.
Fantastic show.
Not
I've
too
learned a
bad
lot.
at all. Good. Usually do while we're here, don't we, Greg?
Absolutely, we do. We come from a very low base, though, don't we?
We do indeed. Whizzing through it, we had iSuburb with West Beach, which is really, it's just a reminder of how beautiful Adelaide really is.
Absolutely.
And Rod Trengove, a really interesting fella, fantastic background for real estate, the last 10 or 11 years, doing extremely well on the way through. Ben Higgins, excuse my voice, Ben Higgins joined us from Brock Harcourt's Financial Services. Kelly Nestor, absolute
Lovely.
delight. And we've had Peter Pedler talking about community titles, and extremely well indeed. What I want to do before we leave is just say thank you very, very much to our sponsors, if that's all right, gentlemen.
Please do.
Just give me a little bit of time. API Insurance, Andrew Cook, as usual, doing a fantastic job. Thank you very much indeed. Really appreciate it. Smart Post with Steve Benwell. And again, look, we just cannot say so many nice words about Steve. He does a fantastic job, always with a smile on his face. Our friends Anthony Olsen out there at Amadio Wines. And Peter, have you checked out the Amadio Wines? If you haven't, I'm going to drop you do.
No,
Thumbs up, mate.
They're great wines.
It is
Great
indeed.
wines.
So local produce and doing extremely well. Young fella, and really enjoy dealing with Anthony. And of course your good selves, Duncan, Basheer, Hannon. We saw the Brains Trust in a restaurant this week. Looks as though that's where all the board meetings are made, Peter. But fantastic to see young Basheer still running around looking $1 million.
He is.
He must be, is he, I shouldn't talk ages, but he must be sort of late 70s, early 80s, is he?
He's
Getting up there?
early 80s.
Early
yeah.
80s, he's just magnificent. So thank you very much for joining. Next week is a best of, and it is an absolute cracker. The 2 people, Linda Van Hoof from Brock Harcourt's Henley Beach, I can remember being on this show and doing a fantastic job. And we had the guru, Stefan Swanepoel, who you know a little bit about.
I do. Very, very bright man, Stefan.
Yeah,
very bright man.
Had him at an REI luncheon, and we actually grabbed him and had a quick chat to him afterwards.
Great stuff.
He's just a fascinating guy with the trends in real estate. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much, Greg.
Pleasure to be here once again.
Lovely to have you back in the seat. Peter, thank you.
Thanks, Greg.
Have a wonderful weekend. You've been watching Open House. Over and out.
Hi, hope you enjoyed today's episode of Open House. If you've got any legal questions about contracts or land deals, please contact me at Duncan Basheer Hannon 8231 3668, or email me on ppedler, that's PPEDLER, @dbh.com.au.